We can watch the seasons, or we can watch the weather, and we notice that there is a change that's almost always taking place. In the weather, it changes even throughout the day, even hour by hour on some days. And then some days it may just stay constant and consistent for several days in a row with very little change. But there is pretty much of a continual change that is taking place in the weather, in the seasons, and then we get to the climate, which is constantly changing also over the different periodic times. You know, years ago, it was very cold. This was an ice age. 10,000 years ago, I think I've mentioned before, we was covered with a half a mile of snow, even in this area. Wherever the land is flat, that's where the glaciers were, and they stopped right in this area. And as they melted, they formed the valleys and the hills and things that we see around here in this part of Indiana. There's a constant conversion, a constant change that takes place. Geologically also, that the volcanoes spew the molten materials from the inside of the earth out, and they form new mountains, and in the same time, other mountains are going down into the seas. And then it causes more unbalances on the earth, and it continues to change. There's a continual change that takes place, and we cannot control what is taking place there, actually. Continual conversion for us, which we have also, is a conversion all the time. Continual conversion to God also requires continual conversation. I remember a backpacking trip that my wife and I took. It was our very first one. We had a lot to learn about it. Annie was carrying 45 pounds. I was carrying 65 pounds. That included our packs. We was up in the Adirondack Mountains in New York. So we started hiking. Way overloaded. We had to make a few changes, but with all that, you know, what do? Throw it away? Leave it trashed? And then, also, we came to one point and we was camping overnight, and some people told us that there was a big storm, that the Hurricane Andrew, there was a hurricane down south that was moving north, and it was going to be affecting us. We didn't listen to them. We continued on. And that next day, we walked through 10 to 12 inches of new rainfall. Trees were falling everywhere. The pine trees were falling. It sounded like somebody was shooting a shotgun through a culvert, because of when one fell, it would usually knock down 3 or 4 other trees. As a result, we never was able to reach our destination. We never heard what was said, and we overdid. We had too many things, too much excess baggage on our trip. So I learned very much from that. We don't need to carry a lot of excess baggage in our trip, and we need to listen to other people. Continual conversion requires continual conversation. Conversation with God, conversation with family and spouse, conversation with friends, conversation with those around you and those that you trust. As we listen, as we hear, and then as we act. In the first reading today, Isaiah listened to God, and he acted. The people of the holy city listened also to Isaiah, and they acted. They did likewise, as they heard God through Isaiah speaking through them. And they became God's delight. In John's gospel today, at the marriage feast of Cana, through Mary and Jesus, after the wine ran out and the water was changed into wine, that miracle that took place, a conversion of water into wine that took place through conversation, listening, hearing, and acting. Mary told Jesus, wine is running out. Mary told the waiters, do what he tells you. Jesus tells the servers, fill the jars, draw some out, take it to the head waiters. The head waiter listened, heard, and acted. And then he tested the water and sent somebody to the groom and said to him that the best wine is usually served first. Why did you serve the best wine later, after that miracle had taken place? Conversion requires continual conversation with God, with family and spouse, with friends and those around you and those that you trust. The marriage feast of Cana it's a Eucharistic happening. We have happenings like this in our own lives. Actually, today there is a Eucharistic happening when the water and wine and the gifts that we have brought forward and our gifts that we also spiritually place upon the altar, all of these are changed into the body and blood of our Lord Jesus Christ. With the priest, with Jesus, and with all of us. It takes us all to have the gifts and to have that miracle once again take place. Continual conversion requires continual conversation. And we do so as the priest does some of the prayers through the consecration. We do so as we do the prayers leading to and following. And then as we come forward and we receive that body and blood. And then another conversion takes place. We become that body and blood. We become what we eat. We become Christ to one another. Continual conversion requires continual conversation. And that conversion towards God requires that conversion not only with God, but also with our parents and our friends and our family and our friends and those who are special to us, those whom we can trust. What kind of conversion or change are you in the middle of right now? Or what kind of conversion or change are you just now starting? What kind of conversion or change are you putting to an end, you've achieved? What kind of conversion or change do you need to get started? You know, we're not like the weather. We can control only one thing. We can't control all those other outcomes in life and what happens and this and that. About the only thing we can control is our own behavior, the way that we act. And the way that we act comes from the changes that we make in our lives. So who are the actors in your life that helps you, that you converse with? How do you listen to them and hear them and put it into your own actions? What change do you need to make today to become that best version of yourself? It's most important that we have conversations with God. So important. That is our prayer. Listening to Him, hearing Him, and then acting upon what He wants. And it's the same with others. And when it comes from God, we know that it is good. Sometimes when we hear from others, we have to discern and go back to God and find out truly what He wants. Our actions actually become our prayer. Our listening is our prayer. And our hearing is our prayer. We can pray in so many different ways. Sometimes we allow our lives and our mind to become too cluttered. We should allow simplicity in our life. You know, just as we went on that backpacking trip, and I went on another backpacking trip where I truly learned that you don't want to have that excessive baggage. As I actually walked the Appalachian Trail to 2,200 miles. I started with 22 pounds and I ended with 16 pounds. So even going from the 65 pounds from the beginning to the 22, ending in 16. Continual change, letting go of things and allowing more of God to enter. So discern what is most important. We'll find out that it's God. We'll find out that it's our family and spouse and friends and neighbors and the friends and those that we talk to and converse with, those that we can trust. Make the change in your life that is necessary. become that person that God made you to be. And just like in nature, for us, continual conversion requires continual conversation.